The first time I thought I was going to die, it was not because of a plasma storm, a pirate raid, or one of the countless monsters that crawled across the deathworld frontiers of known space. It was because of a single word. And the terrifying part was that I did not even realize I had said it. By the year 2847, humanity had earned a reputation that echoed across every star system connected to the Galactic Coalition. To most alien species, Earth was not a civilized world. It was a death world. A place of crushing gravity, violent weather, deadly predators, dangerous microbes, and oceans deep enough to swallow entire cities. The Coalition studied humans for decades and came to one conclusion. If a species could survive Earth, there was probably something wrong with them. The story spread quickly. Humans wrestled dangers that would terrify most civilizations. They walked through disasters, adapted to impossible conditions, and somehow managed to joke about it afterward. Some species admired them. Others feared them. Most did both. I served as a logistics officer aboard the Coalition vessel Horizon's Edge, a ship assigned to one of the most dangerous diplomatic missions in recent history. For the first time, humanity was working directly with the Varine. The Varine were legends. They came from a planet even deadlier than Earth. Their world was covered in jagged stone, forest, toxic seas, and predators large enough to crush armored vehicles. Their young learned combat before they learned mathematics. Entire Coalition fleets altered course when Varine warships entered a sector. Nobody wanted trouble with them, especially not with her. She stood at the center of every briefing, every warning, every whispered conversation in the mess halls. The Varine war commander assigned to our mission, a towering figure wrapped in silver battle armor marked by countless campaigns. Her species possessed pale blue skin, eyes that seemed carved from ice, and reflexes so fast that Coalition sensors struggled to track them. According to official records, she had survived 3 planetary wars. According to unofficial records, she had ended 2 of them herself. The aliens aboard Horizon's Edge treated her like a living natural disaster. Humans were a little different. We respected danger. Sometimes we got a little too comfortable around it. That habit would eventually get me into trouble. The mission itself was simple on paper. A remote frontier colony had gone silent near the edge of explored space. Long-range scans showed signs of attack, but nobody knew by whom. Human scouts and Varine forces were ordered to investigate together. Nobody was happy about the arrangement. The Varine considered humans reckless. Humans considered the Varine impossible to talk to. The first week was filled with tension thick enough to choke on. Every meeting felt like a negotiation between rival predators. Then the colony signal returned. For exactly 17 seconds, what came through froze the bridge. Screams, weapons fire. A warning repeated over and over. They are inside, then silence, no species signature, no identification, nothing. The Horizon's Edge immediately changed course. Within hours, every soldier aboard was preparing for deployment. That included the Varine commander. I found myself helping coordinate supply manifest near the launch bays when she appeared. Even surrounded by armored troops, she looked dangerous. The bay became silent. Nobody wanted to be the one who spoke first. I was carrying a crate of emergency equipment when another crew member nearly walked into me. The crate slipped. I caught it before it hit the deck. The sudden movement startled me. Without thinking, I turned toward the Varine commander and muttered the same thing I had said 1,000 times back on Earth. Sorry about that, sweetheart. The entire launch bay stopped breathing. The soldiers froze. The technicians froze. Even the machinery seemed quieter. My brain immediately realized what had happened. I had just casually addressed the most feared warrior in Coalition space with a human term of affection. I expected anger. I expected a threat. I expected to be thrown through a wall. Instead, something impossible happened. The fearsome Deathworlder stopped moving. Her eyes widened. The room stared in disbelief as the undefeated Varine commander stood perfectly still. Seconds passed. Nobody made a sound, then, very slowly, she stepped closer. Close enough that every human and alien in the bay instinctively backed away. Her expression had changed, not softer, not exactly, just different, confused, curious, almost vulnerable. She looked directly into my eyes and lowered her voice until only the nearest few could hear. "Human," she whispered. Her next words sent a chill through the entire launch bay. "Say it again," and at that exact moment the emergency alarms began screaming throughout the ship. The launch bay erupted into motion. Red emergency lights flashed across the walls. Warning sirens echoed through the ship, drowning out every conversation. Officers rushed toward their stations while soldiers sealed helmets and checked weapons. Yet somehow, despite the chaos, my attention remained fixed on the Marine commander standing only a few steps away. She had not moved. Her icy eyes remained locked on mine as if the alarms did not exist. For a brief moment, I wondered if I had imagined the whole thing. Then she spoke again. What does that word mean? The question caught me completely off guard. Around us, dozens of humans and aliens stared in open disbelief. One of the coalition officers nearly dropped a data pad. The Varine were famous for many things. Curiosity was not one of them. It means... I hesitated. It's a friendly human expression. Her gaze narrowed. Friendly. The way she said the word made it sound unfamiliar. Before I could explain further, a bridge officer sprinted into the bay. Commander, we have visual contact with the colony. That finally pulled her attention away. The strange expression vanished from her face, replaced by the cold focus of a veteran warrior. Without another word, she turned and followed the officer toward the command deck. The soldiers moved with her. Within seconds, she was gone. The launch bay immediately exploded into whispers. What just happened? Did she really ask about it? I thought she was going to tear your head off. I honestly had no answers. But the mystery would have to wait. Something far more dangerous demanded everyone's attention, the frontier colony. Hours later, Horizon's Edge entered orbit. The colony sat on a world designated KX-991. Humans had given it a different name, Grimrock. The name fit perfectly. The planet was classified as a high-risk death world even by human standards. Gravity measured nearly 1.5 times that of Earth. Massive electrical storms circled the globe year-round. Mountain ranges rose like jagged teeth across the continents. Predatory wildlife dominated every ecosystem. Most coalition species considered the planet uninhabitable. Humans considered it challenging. That difference explained a lot about humanity's growing reputation. As the ship descended into low orbit, sensor data flooded every display. The colony itself looked damaged. Several structures had been destroyed. Power systems fluctuated across the settlement. Most concerning of all, life sign readings were inconsistent. Sometimes hundreds appeared. Then they vanished. Then they returned again. The sensor operators checked their equipment repeatedly. Nothing was malfunctioning. Something on the surface was interfering with scans. Nobody knew how. Nobody knew why. The briefing room filled quickly. Human scouts sat alongside coalition officers while Varine soldiers lined the walls like statues. The atmosphere felt heavier than the gravity waiting below. A tactical image appeared above the central table. This is everything we know, the operations chief said. The hologram zoomed in. Damaged buildings flickered into view. Burn marks covered large sections of the colony. Vehicles sat abandoned in the streets. No bodies, no survivors, nothing. Several alien officers shifted uneasily. An empty battlefield disturbed experienced soldiers more than visible casualties. At least visible danger could be understood. This felt wrong. The Varine commander studied the projection silently. Her sharp eyes tracked every detail. What attacked them? She finally asked. No confirmation. What species? Unknown. The room became quiet. Unknown threats were rare in coalition space. Unknown threats capable of overwhelming a death world colony were almost unheard of. The humans exchanged concerned looks. Grimrock had been populated by frontier specialists. Experienced settlers, hunters, engineers, explorers, the kind of people who willingly built homes in places most civilizations avoided. If something had defeated them, it was not ordinary, the briefing continued. Satellite footage showed strange patterns surrounding the colony. Long trails cut through forests and rocky valleys. At first glance, they looked like vehicle tracks. Closer inspection revealed something different. The paths were too wide? Far too wide? One analyst estimated some exceeded 50 meters across. The room fell silent again. Whatever created those marks was enormous. The operations chief switched to another image. This one showed wildlife migration data. Entire populations of native predators were fleeing the region. Not hunting, not competing, running. The implications chilled everyone. On Earth, animals fled natural disasters before humans noticed them. The same principle applied across the galaxy. When apex predators ran away from something, wise people paid attention. I glanced toward the Vereen commander. For the first time since meeting her, I noticed genuine concern in her expression. Not fear, something close to it. That realization bothered me more than any sensor report. If a warrior from one of the deadliest worlds in known space was worried, then the situation was worse than anyone wanted to admit. The meeting ended with a simple decision. A joint human-Varan expedition would land immediately. We would locate survivors, investigate the colony, and identify whatever threat had silenced Grimrock. The dropships were already preparing for launch. As officers began leaving the room, I gathered my equipment. Then a shadow appeared beside me. I looked up. The Vereen commander stood there. Her soldiers waited several meters away, pretending not to watch. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she leaned slightly closer. The fierce warrior who terrified entire fleets lowered her voice until only I could hear. "After the mission," she said carefully, "I want you to explain that human word." Before I could answer, the ship suddenly shuddered. Every light flickered. Across the room, alarms began screaming once more. And on every display throughout Horizon's Edge, a single message appeared. Contact detected below the surface, moving toward the colony, size unknown, number of contacts unknown, depth increasing. Then the sensors went completely dark. Before anyone could react, the ship's internal network erupted with reports. Surface satellites offline, long-range scans disrupted, communication relay unstable. Every update made the situation worse. The operations center became a storm of voices and flashing displays. Officers searched for answers while technicians fought to recover sensor feeds. Nothing worked. Something beneath Grimrock was blocking technology designed to track entire fleets. That fact alone frightened more than a few Coalition veterans. The landing mission moved forward anyway. Humans had a saying that many alien species never understood. When all else fails, go look yourself. Half the Coalition considered that bravery, the other half considered it insanity. 30 minutes later, our dropship plunged through Grimrock's atmosphere. The descent was rough. Violent electrical storms hammered the hull while turbulence shook the craft from side to side. Outside the viewports, black clouds stretched across the horizon. Massive bolts of blue lightning struck distant mountains, illuminating jagged peaks that looked like the teeth of giant predators. Several Coalition officers tightened their harnesses. The humans barely reacted. Most Frontier personnel had seen worse. Across from me, the Vereen commander sat motionless despite the turbulence. Her silver armor reflected the emergency lighting inside the cabin. Around her, Vereen soldiers remained silent, watching, always watching. I had noticed something strange about them since the mission briefing. They kept glancing toward me, not openly, not enough to attract attention, but often enough that I caught it. At first I assumed it was because of the awkward incident in the launch bay. Then I overheard two of them speaking in their native language. Fortunately, Coalition translators never slept. He called her a bonding title. It was clearly accidental. That makes it more confusing. I nearly choked on my own breath. Bonding title? What in the galaxy did that mean? Before I could think about it further, the dropship hit the ground. The rear ramp opened. A wall of heat slammed into us immediately. Grimrock welcomed visitors the way Deathworlds usually did. Aggressively, the air carried traces of volcanic minerals and storm-charged particles. Powerful winds swept across the rocky landscape, carrying dust that could strip paint from exposed metal. Several Coalition species activated environmental protection systems instantly. Humans simply adjusted their goggles and kept moving. The colony sat less than 2 kilometers away. At least what remained of it. The damage looked worse from the ground. Entire structures had been torn apart. Communication towers lay twisted across shattered streets. Defensive walls showed signs of impacts larger than any conventional weapon, yet there were still no bodies. No survivors. No evidence explaining where everyone had gone. That absence weighed on everyone. The silence felt wrong. Frontier colonies were never quiet. Human settlements produced noise by nature, machinery, generators, vehicles, music, arguments, laughter, something. This place had none of it. Only the wind. The expedition split into teams. Some searched buildings while others investigated the surrounding terrain. I found myself assigned to a mixed human-Varren group moving toward the colony's central operations center. The Varren commander led from the front. She studied everything. Broken walls, damaged equipment, strange marks carved into the ground. Nothing escaped her attention. Then one of the scouts called out, "Tracks? Everyone gathered around?" The impressions were enormous. Deep grooves stretched across the rocky soil before disappearing between nearby hills. The size alone was unsettling. Even Grimrock's largest native predators could not have produced marks like these. One of the coalition scientists scanned the ground. His skin immediately changed color, a sign of distress common among his species. "These are recent." "How recent?" "Less than 12 hours. A heavy silence followed. Something massive had moved through the colony less than half a day ago, and nobody knew where it was now. The storm clouds above grew darker. Thunder rolled across the valley. Then another report came through. A survey team exploring the settlement's eastern district had discovered something, not survivors. Not bodies, messages, hundreds of them, scratched into walls, etched into metal, carved into doors. Every message contained the same warning. Run, nothing else. Just one word repeated again and again. The discovery unsettled even the most experienced soldiers. Humans did not abandon colonies easily. If settlers had spent their final hours carving warnings instead of fighting, then whatever they faced had pushed them beyond ordinary fear. As darkness approached, the expedition established a temporary command post. Storm activity intensified overhead. Lightning illuminated distant mountains every few seconds. The flashes revealed movement on the horizon. Huge shapes. Too far away to identify. Gone whenever darkness returned. Some claimed they were rocks, others disagreed. Nobody wanted to test either theory. Inside the command shelter, coalition officers debated evacuation. The argument quickly became heated. Several alien representatives wanted to withdraw immediately and request military reinforcements. The humans opposed the idea, not because they underestimated the danger, because survivors might still be out there. That difference revealed something many species struggle to understand about humanity. Humans could be afraid and determined at the same time. The two emotions were not opposites. They often worked together. The Varren commander listened quietly as the debate continued. Then she surprised everyone. "I agree with the humans." The room fell silent. Several coalition officers stared in disbelief. She ignored them. "If survivors remain, we search?" No one argued after that. Later that night, while most of the camp rested, I stood watch outside the shelter. The storm had finally eased. The colony remained silent. Too silent. A figure approached through the darkness. The Varren commander. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then she looked toward the ruined settlement. "The word you used," she said softly. I already knew which word she meant. "Sweetheart." She nodded. "Why would a human call someone that?" I opened my mouth to answer. Before a single word escaped, a distant scream echoed across the valley. Not human, not alien. Something else. Something enormous. Then every motion sensor around the camp activated at once. And according to the displays, hundreds of contacts were suddenly moving toward us through the darkness. The camp exploded into action. Floodlights snapped on across the perimeter. Soldiers rushed toward defensive positions while scanners screamed warnings from every direction. The sensor display looked impossible, hundreds of contacts. Then thousands. Then the numbers vanished completely as interference swallowed the readings once again. The distant scream echoed through the valley a second time. Closer, much closer. Even the Varren soldiers stiffened. That alone sent a chill through everyone present. The Varren did not scare easily. The commander immediately began issuing orders. Defensive teams to the northern ridge. Recon drones airborne. Maintain visual contact at all times. Her voice remained calm, but I noticed something unusual. Her hand rested near the weapon at her side. Not casually, ready. Around us, the ruined colony seemed to awaken. Motion detectors flashed red across abandoned buildings. Shadowy movement appeared between broken structures. Every time a spotlight swept across the area, whatever was there disappeared. The storm clouds overhead rolled like a living ocean. Lightning illuminated the valley. For a brief instant, everyone saw them, massive silhouettes, dozens of them, standing motionless along the distant ridges, watching. Then darkness swallowed them again. Nobody spoke for several seconds. One coalition officer finally broke the silence. "Those are not rocks," no one disagreed. "The first attack never came. That somehow made things worse. Hours passed. The unknown creatures remained beyond visual range, circling the colony without advancing. Like predators testing prey, waiting. The tension became unbearable. Humans understood that feeling. Many of Earth's deadliest predators hunted exactly the same way. Wolves, big cats, pack hunters. They studied weakness before striking. The realization spread quickly among the human personnel. The aliens noticed it too. Something strange happened after that. The humans became calmer, not less concerned. Just more focused. Several coalition species found this behavior unsettling. One alien technician finally asked the question everyone else was thinking. "Why are your people becoming more relaxed?" A human scout checked his rifle and shrugged. "Because now we understand what we're dealing with." The alien stared. "You understand those things?" "No," the scout pointed toward the darkness. "But we understand predators." That answer somehow disturbed the alien even more. As dawn approached, another discovery changed everything. A search team exploring underground maintenance tunnels found survivors. Only 3, exhausted, injured, terrified. The settlers were immediately brought back to camp. Medical personnel surrounded them while officers demanded answers. The survivors could barely speak. Weeks of fear had drained them, but eventually fragments of the story emerged. The attacks had started nearly a month earlier. Strange creatures appeared beyond the colony perimeter. At first they simply watched. Then equipment began disappearing. Power stations failed. Communication systems malfunctioned. People vanished, one at a time. No battles, no warnings. Just disappearances. Every rescue team sent after the missing colonists vanished as well. The survivors described enormous creatures moving beneath the ground itself. Living deep under Grimrock's crust, ancient, intelligent, patient. The colony never stood a chance. A heavy silence filled the command shelter. Then one survivor revealed the detail that truly shocked everyone. "They weren't hunting us because we were weak." The room became still. "What do you mean?" someone asked. The survivor swallowed hard. "They were studying us." Nobody liked that answer. The implications were horrifying. A predator that studied prey before attacking was dangerous. A predator that studied entire civilizations was something else entirely. Outside, the sky brightened slowly. The first sunlight revealed the full scale of the problem. The ridges surrounding the colony were covered with movement. Hundreds of giant shapes stood watching from every direction. For the first time, everyone saw them clearly. Towering creatures armored with layers of natural stone and mineral plating. Some stood taller than colony buildings. Others disappeared halfway into the earth itself. Their glowing eyes reflected the morning light. The entire camp fell silent. Even experienced soldiers struggled to process what they were seeing. One of the coalition scientists whispered a single sentence. "We're standing in their territory." The realization hit hard. The colony had not been attacked. It had been built directly above something. Something ancient, something powerful. Something that apparently wanted the settlers gone. Fear spread quickly among the coalition personnel. Evacuation discussions resumed immediately. Many believed the mission was already lost. The numbers alone made resistance impossible, yet the humans reacted differently. Not because they were fearless, because they recognized something familiar. The creatures were dangerous, so was Grimrock. So was Earth. Human history was filled with impossible environments and overwhelming threats. Every generation had faced something larger, stronger, or deadlier than themselves, and somehow humanity kept surviving. The alien observers began noticing that pattern. The more dangerous the situation became, the more determined the humans appeared. They checked equipment, strengthened defenses, shared supplies, prepared plans, prepared backup plans, then prepared plans for when those failed. The Varine commander watched all of it carefully. She watched injured humans helping others before themselves. She watched exhausted scouts volunteer for additional patrols. She watched settlers who had lost everything insist on assisting the defense effort. Eventually, she approached one of the human engineers. "Why are you still preparing to fight?" The engineer looked genuinely confused. "Because people need protecting. You cannot win against those numbers." The engineer smiled. It was not arrogance. It was something older, something deeply human. "We don't know that yet." The commander stared at him for several seconds. For the first time, the legendary Deathworld warrior seemed to understand why the galaxy found humans so difficult to predict. Then the ground beneath the colony suddenly trembled. Cracks spread across the streets, buildings shook violently. Alarms erupted throughout the camp. And far below the settlement, something colossal began rising toward the surface. As soldiers rushed to defensive positions and terrified aliens stared at the splitting earth, the Vereen commander turned toward me once more. Amid the chaos, she spoke the word carefully, the human word she had not forgotten. "Sweetheart." Then her eyes lifted toward the massive shape emerging beneath the colony. And for the first time since arriving on Grimrock, the fearsome Deathworlder smiled. Because whatever was coming out of the ground, humanity was not running. The earth exploded upward. Rock, dust, and shattered concrete blasted into the air as the enormous shape beneath the colony finally emerged. Soldiers raised weapons. Alien officers prepared for the worst. Even the fearless Varen warriors tightened their formations. What rose from beneath Grimrock was larger than anyone had imagined. The creature towered over the colony like a living mountain. Its body was covered in layers of stone-like armor, glowing veins of crystal running beneath its surface. Massive eyes opened slowly, each one larger than a transport vehicle. The ground continued trembling as more shapes surfaced around it. Not hundreds, not thousands, entire colonies of them. Ancient giants sleeping beneath Grimrock's crust. For a moment, nobody moved. Then every weapon targeting system aboard Horizon's Edge locked onto the creatures. A single command from orbit could have started a battle unlike anything the sector had ever seen. But something unexpected happened. The giants did not attack. They simply watched. The largest creature lowered its enormous head toward the colony ruins. Its glowing eyes moved across the humans, the Vereen, and the coalition forces, studying, observing, just as the survivors had described. Then the translators across the camp activated simultaneously. At first only static emerged. Then a voice, deep, ancient, slow. "We remember." The entire expedition froze. The voice continued. "We remember the builders." Confused looks spread through the camp. The settlers, the colony, none of it made sense. Then one of the surviving colonists stepped forward. His face went pale. "I know that phrase." Everyone turned toward him. Years earlier, before the colony vanished, geological teams had discovered strange markings deep underground. Nobody had been able to translate them, until now. The colonists stared at the giant creature. "You built this world?" The enormous being remained silent for several seconds, then came the answer. "We shaped it." Shock rippled through the gathered crowd. Grimrock was not simply a death world. It was an engineered world. A planet designed by an ancient civilization so old that even coalition records contain no mention of it. The giant creature's gaze moved toward the destroyed colony. Sacred ground disturbed. Finally, the mystery began falling into place. The settlers had unknowingly drilled into vast underground chambers. Ancient chambers. The sleeping places of the creatures beneath Grimrock. The giants had not invaded the colony. The colony had accidentally invaded them. A coalition officer stepped forward nervously. Then why attack the settlers? The giant's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. "We did not." Silence followed. Everyone suddenly realized the importance of those words. The survivors had assumed people were being taken. The truth was far stranger. The creatures had been removing colonists from danger, protecting them from unstable underground regions damaged by drilling operations. Entire rescue teams had vanished because they too had entered dangerous zones. The giants had relocated them deeper underground, alive. Hope surged through the camp. "You're saying the missing colonists survived?" someone shouted. The answer came immediately. Yes. At that moment, the earth shifted again. Massive openings appeared throughout the valley. Hundreds of humans emerged. Then hundreds more, tired, dirty, confused, but alive. Cheers erupted across the colony. Families reunited, friends embraced. Even hardened soldiers struggled to hide their relief. The missing settlers had spent weeks sheltered in underground caverns while the giants attempted to understand how to communicate with them. The warnings carved throughout the colony suddenly made sense as well. The settlers had not been warning others about the giants. They had been warning them away from unstable ground that could collapse without notice. The misunderstanding had nearly triggered a war. As rescue operations continued, the Marine commander stood beside me watching the reunions. For the first time since arriving on Grimrock, the tension seemed to leave her shoulders. The crisis was over, the mystery solved, and thousands of lives had been saved. Not through superior weapons, not through military power, but through patience, courage, and understanding. The giant creatures eventually revealed one final truth. They had spent weeks studying the newcomers because they feared them. That revelation shocked nearly every alien present. Feared them? These mountain-sized beings feared humans, the ancient creature explained. Across countless generations, they had observed many species visit Grimrock. Most fled quickly. Only humans chose to stay. Only humans built homes on a world that actively tried to kill them. Only humans looked at danger and decided it was worth adapting to. From the giants' perspective, humanity appeared unstoppable. The explanation triggered laughter among many of the human settlers. The aliens looked less amused, because they suddenly realized how humanity appeared through an outsider's eyes. A species from a death world. A people who endured crushing gravity, violent storms, predators, disasters, and impossible odds. A civilization that kept moving forward no matter what stood in its path. Weeks later, as Horizon's Edge prepared to leave orbit, a new agreement was signed. The colony would be rebuilt. This time alongside the ancient guardians of Grimrock rather than above them. Humans, Varine, and the giants would work together. A partnership born from misunderstanding but strengthened through trust. As for the Marine commander, she found me shortly before departure. The endless storms of Grimrock rolled across the horizon behind her. For once, she looked less like a feared warrior and more like someone simply enjoying a quiet moment. "I understand the word now," she said. I smiled. "Do you?" She nodded. "It means someone important." I could not argue with that interpretation. The commander looked toward the rebuilt colony where humans and aliens worked side by side. Then she surprised me one final time. A faint blush crossed her blue features. "Thank you, sweetheart." I nearly dropped the datapad I was holding. Her laugh echoed across the landing platform. Nearby Marine soldiers stared in complete disbelief. For the first time, the fearsome Deathworlder seemed perfectly happy to let them. And as Horizon's Edge departed Grimrock, carrying a story that would spread across the galaxy, one lesson became impossible to ignore. Humanity's greatest strength was never its weapons, its technology, or even its toughness. It was the simple refusal to give up on understanding the unknown. On every frontier, every death world, and every distant star, that stubborn human spirit remained the same. And that was why humanity kept turning fear into friendship, survival into hope, and impossible odds into another story worth telling. Thanks for watching this story. If you enjoyed this HFY science fiction adventure, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more epic stories.